Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Eric, and today I'm going to be talking about my opinion as well as some recent news on the Paralympics and what I perceive to be ableism within the organization. Sorry, that was my dog. It's okay. But and I want to be very careful here because it was either last year or the year before I made a story on Instagram talking about what I perceive to be the ableism within the Paralympics, and a bunch of Paralympians and Paralympic hopefuls were sliding into my DMs, screaming at me, saying I didn't know what I was talking about. But I just ask that you try to keep an open mind and watch this video all the way through before you spread your opinion, especially if you're going to call me names and stuff. Please don't do that. Okay, so first I am gonna pull up a story of some recent news regarding the Paralympics and the ableism within the organization. Sorry, I had to X out of some things. I was way too many tabs on my iPad, and that's my toxic trait. Okay, Paralympics. And as always, I will link the article that I'm referring to down below. I'm gonna click on the one from CBS because I feel like it might be a bit more objective than CNN. I am very liberal, but personally I think CNN can be very biased and echo chambery, so I'm going on to CBS. I know it's probably still biased and echo chambery, but hopefully a little bit less. Okay, so enough of my rambling. So far, the title of this article is "Swimmer drops out of Paralympics after being denied care assistance." And I'm not gonna read you the whole article, but I will try to read some parts of it and give my take. And then also, after we're done talking about this specific situation, I want to talk about why for a while now I've said the Paralympics are ableist. Okay, let's start reading. Three-time gold medalist Becca Meyers, who is deaf and blind, said Tuesday that she's dropping out of the Tokyo Paralympics. The swimmer said she made the gut-wrenching decision because the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee refused her request to bring her personal care assistant with her to the games. Okay, and then there's a quote by her saying she's very upset and sad that she can't represent the U.S. in the Paralympics this year. And then the quote that I really think is important is the U.S. OPC has denied a reasonable and essential accommodation for me as a deaf-blind athlete to be able to compete in Tokyo, telling me repeatedly that I do not need a a personal care assistant, which is then abbreviated to PCA, who I trust, because there will be a single PCA on staff that is available to assist me and 38 other Paralympic swimmers, 9 of whom are also visually impaired. Okay, so here's the issue with that. And I'm going to refer to a book I read last year. It's called Haben by Haben Girma, and she is a deaf-blind lawyer, I believe. She's a lawyer, but if not, she went to law school, and she is also a disability rights activist, and she also has a YouTube channel, so I will link that down below. But so, at least from what I read, and I'm not deaf-blind, but in one chapter in her memoir, Haben was saying that she was going to this celebration at the White House for the anniversary of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and this was back when Obama was president, so there wasn't like a bigoted orange man in the White House. But anyway, okay, so she went to a ceremony to celebrate the anniversary of the ADA, and she was actually, I believe, a keynote speaker at the event. And since she is deafblind, and she wasn't familiar with the White House, because even though she's this great activist, she's still a normal, everyday person. Like, she doesn't work in the White House, so she's not familiar with the layout. So she needed assistance for someone to direct her onto the stage, since she's deafblind, so it can be hard for her to navigate places she is unfamiliar with. So she had this guy that she never met, who was acting as her guide, but she wanted someone that she knew and trusted to be it, but they said no because of security reasons. But in that chapter, what Haben said was that the reason deaf-blind people need to have a guide or a personal care attendant that they know and trust is because, and this is from my understanding, again, I'm not deafblind, so please don't take what I say as the word of the community, but she needed someone she knew and trusted, because they had a certain system where she knew what certain signals and certain movements meant. So, and that is part of the reason why it's so problematic that Becca Meyers has to share a personal care attendant with 33 other Paralympians, because, the thing is, it's that personal care attendant is also going to be attending to 32 other people, or 33, I forget, sorry. But, so she's not going, or they're not going to be able to help Becca to the amount that she probably needs and would help her, especially because she's in a new country and I assume there's a language barrier unless Becca is bilingual, but I'm not aware that she is. But so it's gonna make that 10 times harder for Becca. So not only would she have to worry about all of her care needs being met and being met to a degree where she would be comfortable, but she also has to worry about, because she's in the Paralympics, so I mean, she's going to be taking her race very seriously, I would assume. So then she also wants to be on the top of her game, but because she has to worry about all of this other extra stuff, I would imagine that would be very distracting. And I just, like, you're the Paralympics. How are you denying an athlete a reasonable accommodation? It's like, if disabled people can't compete in the Paralympics, who can? Because the Olympics are for non-disabled people. So then what is left for disabled people is my question. And now is when I'm going to get into a bit more of my issue or my bone to pick. I kind of hate that phrase. I think it's kind of gross because I imagine people... Anyway, but my issue with the Paralympics. If you don't know, and you probably don't, because I don't think I've mentioned this in another video, and if I have, it was briefly, so I'm gonna assume you don't know. I was a runner in high school, and I took it very seriously, and my race was the 100-meter dash, and I really wanted to get into the Paralympics, and there was one point where, like, I was very close to being at, like, the lowest level. Like, I would probably, if I was even able to make it to the Paralympics, I would end up in last place, but that would be fine on me because, like, it was just my dream to be able to compete at that level. But anyway, so I didn't go that route. And one of the reasons I didn't go that route is I did a lot of research on the Paralympics during that time. And also during that time, I was struggling heavily with an ED and other mental health issues, so my relationship with running wasn't the healthiest anyway. But besides that, when I watched races, and again, I have cerebral palsy in case you don't know, and the way the Paralympics is set up is people are put into categories, and they have multiple categories for cerebral palsy, so they have, like, the most severe and the least severe. And I'm going to try to say this and convey it the best I can. Hopefully I don't get it wrong, but if I do, I really apologize. But in the category that was the most severe runners with CP, none of them used mobility aids. They all barely had a limp, which is fine. Like, I'm not saying they don't count as disabled, but what I'm saying is, if that's your most severe CP category, and again, I'm saying most severe, but I'm not saying CP doesn't affect them, but I'm saying if that's, like, the category for the people who who are like the most visibly impaired by their CP, then it's like there's no room for runners like me because I use a lost hand crutch. And this is where it's gonna get a little personal. But when I posted that Instagram story, I would like to assume well-meaning Paralympians were like, oh yeah, well you can do like a wheelchair race then, because that's what people with your level of CP do. But I can't push a wheelchair. And even if I could, if running is my passion and wheelchair racing isn't, that shouldn't be up to the Paralympic Committee to then be like, oh yeah, but since you use a mobility device or your CP is more severe than these people, you who have to race in a chair. It should be up to the disabled individual to say, this is the sport I want to do and this is how I would like to do it. And I just think that's a big issue with the Paralympics, is it feeds a lot into elitism and ableism within the disabled community. And what I mean by that is it almost makes it enforces the hierarchy of disability. It enforces some people being better than others, and an argument can be made that competitions in general are always going to do that. And so I know the Paralympics is going to inherently do that. But they don't need to exclude people just because of their disability if we're willing to train as hard and be the best however we can be. But our disability just happens to make it a bit harder than it is for other people with the same disability but aren't affected to the same degree. Like, what are the Paralympics for if they exclude so many disabled people? And like, I realize it's still like this world-class competition, so you still want the best of the best, but there should be more categories to include more disabled people and people of varying degrees of severity. And that's just my take. And I really want to drive home that if you are a part of the Paralympics, or if you love the Paralympics, please, please, please don't take this personally. I'm not saying you're ableist or you're a bad person. You can love a certain thing and still notice that there are flaws in it and that it can be better. In fact, I would make an argument that if you really love something, you'd want it to be the best that it can be. And with that, I think this is the end.